So what's up, guys? John Francis here, Fuel Fitness Co. On this channel, we're breaking down training, breaking down different gear, different supplements, and honestly looking at the evidence and just testing what actually works. Big shout out to one of my training partners in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Charles, for the content for this video today. Charles reached out to me and asked me, how do I build explosive power for jiu-jitsu? And his thoughts were he was trying to build explosive power for a couple different reasons. For one, how do I explode out of somebody's grips? If somebody's holding my arm, how to explode out? If somebody has my legs, how do I explode out? Or how do I explode through a takedown? How do I explode through standing up on somebody who's got me in side control or whatever? If we get in a scramble, how do I stand up when somebody's got the pressure on me and do it fast and explosive? Because Charles is strong. Charles is a big dude, and he's got some strength, but he wants to develop that explosive power. So his question was, what kind of exercises can help me build that explosive power? I love diving into this. So Charles had that question about explosive power. He also asked, how do I develop rotational power, good core rotational power that's going to help me with like sweeps and things from the bottom? A lot of times when you try to catch a sweep on somebody, you're kind of at a weird angle where sometimes you have to turn and stand up at the same time. And it can be kind of awkward and kind of different. So you have to have a lot of core strength to be able to move somebody, especially Charles is a big dude. So in his weight class, to be able to move those people, you have to have a fair amount of rotational strength. And then he talked about explosive hit power as well. So I'm going to dive into some of that. So first of all, let's just start with defining explosive power training and where that should be in our training day. Anytime you're going to train explosive power or speed of any sort, it should be the first exercise you do that day outside of your warm-up. If you're gonna do explosive power and speed training, your warm-up is gonna have to be a pretty thorough warm-up to get you primed, to get your muscles primed, to get your nervous system primed, and get you ready to fully explode, and to fully accelerate. So we do have to kind of take that into account, right? And then maybe some warm-up sets of that exercise even after the general warm-up to get you really ready to go and firing. But when we're doing explosive training and power training, it should always be at the front of our workout. It should never be at the end of our workout. We want to be able to, every time you do any kind of explosive exercise, you want to be able to generate as much force and as much power per rep as possible. And we just simply can't do that when we're under fatigue. For example, if today I go to the gym this morning and I grapple for 3 hours straight, hard rolls, which obviously going to wear my body down completely, upper body, lower body. And then when I finish that session, or even if I tried to later that evening go do some explosive work, I can attempt to do that explosive work, but it's not going to truly elicit the stimulus that I need because my body is going to still be under fatigue. So even if I did that workout this morning, it's going to take me longer than 12 hours to truly recover to a point that I can give the power output needed to elicit that stimulus, right? Because if you're explosive training and power training, you want to have maximal power output. So otherwise you're training something different, and that's okay. Sometimes training something different can be good. Maybe you're looking to train something different, but you're not training explosiveness and power. Now there's such a thing as training power endurance, where you're training as much power as you can generate while you're fatigued. That's a thing, and that's a great thing for jiu-jitsu. But it's not training that top end initial explosiveness and power that you want. So my recommendation is to always put your explosive training and your power training as the very first exercise or first two exercises of a workout. That would be a great way to do it. Now, you can create a whole entire workout around explosive training. That is very possible to do as long as you have enough rest between exercises and enough rest between sets, and you keep the rep amount per set very low. You can do a type of explosive ATP training day where maybe you do 30 minutes of very, very explosive training. And that's possible. And that would be something definitely I'm not going to talk about in this video, but that would be something that somebody definitely could do. But in the case of motion jiu-jitsu people, let's just go ahead and say make your first exercise or two very, very explosive. So that's where your explosive exercises need to be within that workout session, within one workout session. Now, how many workout sessions do you need per week? I would say to improve explosiveness and power, I would like to see somebody have and still develop a well-rounded amount of strength, a well-rounded amount of tissue resilience and tendon health. I would like to see somebody strength train 3 days a week outside of jiu-jitsu. 2 days for maintenance, but 3 days minimum for growth, for getting better, for getting stronger, for getting more explosive. I'd like to see 3 days of strength training. So now we know your explosive work should be at the front end of your training, or if you're doing it in one whole session, that's fine, but you have to have plenty of rest between sets. So, and minimal amount of reps per set, and the weight being low. And anyways, that I could go into a lot there. And Charles, I know you're going to watch this video. We could absolutely talk more about that. If you really are like, I want to do a whole day dedicated to explosive training, we could absolutely talk about that. And they're highly beneficial. But thinking about trying to keep you well-rounded, I think it'd be best just to do the first 2 exercises of each day explosive, and then let the rest come, that. Now, with 3 days, you need to be doing either a day 1 being a upper body push day, day 2 being an upper body pull day, and day 3 being a leg day, or doing 3 full body days where each day you're hitting full body, but maybe you're not doing as many exercises per body part on that day. Now, if you're doing 3 days that are full body, then that explosive exercise that's at the beginning of that workout needs to be a different body part each workout. So day 1, maybe let's say your explosive exercise at the beginning of the workout is some kind of upper body pull, whether it's pulling horizontal, like a row, or pulling overhead. It's going to be some kind of upper body pull, and that's going to be your explosive exercise. This second day, maybe your explosive exercise is going to be a leg-focused explosive exercise. So it's going to be a squat, or a deadlift, or a power snatch, or a power clean, something that's going to be explosive with the hips and with the legs. And then maybe that third day is going to be explosive press, whether it be a chest press or an overhead press of some sort. It's going to be something explosive there. Now, let's talk about rep ranges when it comes to those explosive exercises. You're going to want to keep the rep ranges per set, reps per set, between 2 and 5. So that means that you're going to only do 2 reps to 5 reps per set. And then how many sets? I would say anywhere between 3 to probably 3 to 8 sets. So if you're doing, and the lower amount of reps per set means you can do more sets. The higher amount of reps per set means you're going to do less sets. So let's say, for example, the way I may run a program is maybe I may have you the first week do 3 sets of 5, then I might have you do 4 sets of 5, and then I might have you do 5 sets of 5, just to kind of build up some volume tolerance and get you used to the movements, especially if you're new. And then I may have you back down from there from 5 sets of 5. I might have you do 5 sets of 4, then I might have you do 5 sets of 3, then I might have you do 6 sets of 3, then I might have you do 7 sets of 2, and I might have you do 8 sets of 2, or something like that, and have you progress that way. And then, we have all your weights recorded, and then maybe we back you back down and we repeat that again, something like that. That would be an example of maybe a cycle in there, how I'd kind of run that and develop that. And then we would have plenty of rest between the sets. We're talking 2 to 3 minutes of rest to make sure you have enough energy to really develop explosive power. Now, the amount of rest is going to vary depending on how much load and how much heaviness, how heavy that weight is. If that weight's really light, then there's not going to be as much need for rest. In fact, if the weight's really light, you might only need 1 minute of rest. If the weight's a little heavier, you're going to need a little more rest. So keep that into account. And if you're, but if you're really trying to develop that explosive power with a heavy weight, then yeah, you're going to want 2 to 3 sets, 2 to 3 minutes of rest. How do you know if the weight's too heavy? I think that if you feel the weight and you feel the load, and you think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being this is a very heavy load, like I'm doing a bench press, and a 10 would be where my bench press is just slow and grindy, right? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, that's a 10. And then a 7 is like you pull the bar off and you're like, whoa, all right, that weight feels heavy. But you go down and then you explode up, and you kind of just, your arms are kind of like pistons, even though it's heavy, you kind of move that thing with some force. When training for explosiveness and power, you don't want that weight to be grindy. You want it to be fast and crisp, but you want it to be heavy enough that it's giving you that strength stimulus. And you want to make sure that every rep you are generating as much power as humanly possible. I can't stress that enough. When you do that, you're actually not only just developing power, but you're developing more strength than you think. A lot of Olympic weightlifters get really strong this way in developing that kind of power. So you can really, really get strong doing that as well. So make sure your sets are right. Make sure your rest is right. Make sure your power and your bar speed is good. You're actually moving the bar fast. You're moving with some intent. It's kind of speedy. It's not super grindy. And now, what are some exercises that are great for developing that power? I think that any kind of row and a pull for arm, a pull down, a vertical pull, a horizontal pull. Probably for jiu-jitsu, a horizontal pull is a little more functional, but you want to do both to make sure you're developing a balanced musculature. But a horizontal pull is going to be great. A horizontal push is going to be great. It's going to be a little more functional, probably than an overhead push. But again, same thing. We've got to develop a balanced musculature. So you're going to want to incorporate both of those exercises. But I think for the explosive exercise, for the upper body, for jiu-jitsu, it'd be better to do any kind of horizontal pull and any kind of horizontal push for jiu-jitsu. Also for jiu-jitsu, I think a great exercise for explosive hip pop is going to be the power clean from the floor, or a power snatch. Now, the great thing about a power clean is it's less technical than a power snatch. Another thing would be a explosive trap bar deadlift jump. Or maybe not even a jump, just an explosive trap bar deadlift. So you take a trap bar and you just really explode up. Now make sure I like to actually pick the bar up off the floor first and get some tension there and then explode out of that tension. Because like we talked about before, in jiu-jitsu, oftentimes there's already tension there. Maybe somebody's already pulling on your gi and pulling your body weight down, and you need to explode out, but they're already pulling against you. So I like to pick that deadlift up off the floor about an inch or two and then explode up from there out of that. But yeah, explosive deadlifts can be great too if power cleans are too technical or maybe they hurt your elbows. Power cleans can be tough because they can kind of hurt your elbows here and things like that. So you could do an explosive deadlift, or look up a clean pull. Clean pull would be a great exercise for that. And then of course the squat power clean. And those are great exercises to develop hip power. Then on top of that, there are some other exercises that are going to be great for developing rotational power. A Turkish get up is going to be great for just developing that balance coming up out of the side. But really, truly, heavy core exercises, I think, are going to make the most difference. So, actually doing hanging leg raises, things like that, V ups, GHD sit ups, heavy sit ups on a machine, cable crunches. We're really loading a lot of weight, planks, side planks, different difficult variations of planks, Copenhagen planks, side plank reach throughs, side plank leg lifts, all kinds of variations of planks. I think are going to be really important in developing that power. Now, you could say develop even some rotational twists could be beneficial, but honestly, I find that building a high amount of core strength through those is very, very, very beneficial when it comes to that rotational strength, that core strength that you need for jiu-jitsu. Really developing the hip flexors and the abs can be really beneficial. And I've experienced that from years of just core training. And typically when I start to get somebody sideways and I start to rotate in jiu-jitsu, like I feel immediately that I have a strength advantage there. It's just um, and then maybe some of that's technique, but I feel like core strength has a lot to do with that. So those are going to be some great exercises there. Then outside of that, I think it's a great uh, protocol in general to take all your other exercises that you do after that initial explosive exercise, right? Every other exercise you do from there on your if on your concentric portion of the lift, that's where you're squeezing and contracting. Okay, so like on a horizontal row, you're squeezing and contracting here. You're going to explode fast. You're going to pull really, really quickly there. And then we're going to pause right here. We're going to get a little isometric hold. And then you're going to do a slow controlled lower. 1, 2, 3, maybe a 3-second lower. Explode back again. Hold a little, I pause and isometric hold in as deep a range of motion as possible. And then we're just going to 1, 2, 3, slow lower. I think if you follow that on every other exercise from there, every other exercise you do, you're going to have a great combination of developing explosive power plus some isometric strength plus the slow lower or the slow eccentric helps develop muscle mass. It's going to help develop tendon strength. It's going to give you some good tissue resilience between doing that isometric hold and that slow lower. So to me, you're getting the most bang for your buck in your session training that way. And also, doing a hold and a slow lower is going to limit the load on your muscles, which on one sense, yeah, may hurt the amount of strength you can develop. But I think over time, it's going to help keep you more healthy for a sport like jiu-jitsu. Because oftentimes in jiu-jitsu, honestly, the reason why I love the pauses and the squeezes and the holds and the slow lowers. Jiu-jitsu is rare that you get a situation where you get to use your stretch reflex. I think one of the worst ways you can train for jiu-jitsu is using stretch reflexes on every exercise. For example, a bench press. If you bench press and you just drop the weight as fast as possible, bounce it off your chest and bounce it back up and use that stretch reflex, it's very rare in jiu-jitsu you get to use that stretch reflex. It's very rare that you get to like load somebody up and like, oh, well, I'm going to bounce you off my chest and I'm going to pull you here and then push you there. Like, I mean, there might be some push-pull here, but like, who's doing that, I mean, it's just a different type of feeling. And I think that pause, hold, slow lower, explode, pause is, I think, going to give you the most bang for your buck on that. And with those exercises, too, you can vary your rep ranges. You could do low reps, let's say 5 to 8 reps if you're trying to work on more strength, that real top end strength. Or if you want to work on muscle endurance, then maybe you go more 15 to 20 reps. So I think you can vary there, and you can adjust that based on your training. But hopefully, I hope that some of that is helpful. I would love to go more in depth. Please ask any questions at all in the comments. And Charles, thank you so much for giving me the content, and appreciate you tuning in.